be followed by a public hearing on the superintendent's profile. I'd like to welcome you, and I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a TV that's available with closed circuit. I know that's been done in the past. So if you have trouble hearing or you would like to have that available to you, I'm sure they'll direct you to the room there. Just reminder to the board, as well as the speakers who come forward, just remember to speak clearly, speak into the mic as best that you can. We have some letters that have been brought to our attention to read. If they are not about the superintendent's search, we will be reading those on March 10th meeting. So at this point, we're going to take a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board, tonight we have the approval of our agenda. Before we move for that motion, I do have some that I would like to have you consider bringing an amendment to our agenda. One, I'd like you to consider making a motion for a closed session for the purpose of legal counsel concerning mitigation strategies. The other one, and that would be, I think, after public hearing. The second one would be considering mask wearing for staff and also on buses for students in the Superintendents Matters section. I think that has a timely purpose that we look at that tonight. And also to complete our vote from February 10th on the optional test to stay program. So those are my thoughts and desires, and if you would so choose to make that motion or any others for our agenda tonight.
Madam Chair, I move that those items be added to our agenda for the evening.
Okay, Mr. Greiser has made a motion that all three be added. As the board chair stated, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second by Mr. Orasi. Is there anyone that would like to have any discussion on that?
Madam Chair, I move to amend the amendment to include discussing the VDH guidance from January 25th regarding contact tracing and quarantining.
VDH guidance, what?
Regarding contact tracing and quarantining from January 25th, 2022.
Okay. So you want to make an amendment to add that to those three to consider VDH guidance regarding the contact tracing and quarantining.
Correct.
I think you had a date on that.
January 25th, 2022. That was when they made their announcement.
Okay. So there's an amendment on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mrs. Berg. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
I think it's timely. I'm very glad.
Mrs. Justice?
I'm sorry, Madam Chairwoman.
okay.
I think it's timely, and I'm glad we're going to look at these items that are of great concern to our constituents.
Okay. Any other comments? The board chair would just like to say that if we're going to vote on these as a whole, we may even want to consider voting on these separately. That might be an option as well. Any other discussion? All right, so the motion on the floor for the amendment is to include the VDH guidance for the required contract tracing and quarantining as stated in January 25th, 2022 is the amended motion that's on the floor. And it has a second, so board, are you ready to vote? Okay, all in favor of the amendment of including this one with those other three? Would you say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Board, I will ask that, I did not say this. I'm just assuming that we would put that under Superintendent's Matters as well. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so now I need a motion to approve tonight's amended agenda.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve tonight's amended agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Orasi. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to look at is the presentation of superintendent search process. So I want to introduce to you tonight, wait a minute, I have something I'm supposed to read. Let me make sure I get that. Well, this is, Cecil, you wouldn't have a different one, would you? Oh, I found it, never mind. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to this public input session. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to receive feedback from community members regarding the characteristics, skills, or knowledge the next superintendent of Amherst County Schools should possess. It would not be appropriate to mention names or a particular incident from the past. This type of information is best received in writing and sent to the Amherst County School Board, the superintendent, or to appear at the next regular school board meeting on March 10th. Tonight, your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The school board is here to listen to the public and will not be engaging a speaker dialogue. The Amherst County School Board has secured the services of Real Synergy, LLC, to assist in the superintendent search process. I would like to introduce Dr. J. David Martin, president of the firm, to give a brief update and timetable for the search process before we begin the public input session tonight. Mr. Martin, Dr. Martin, I mean.
Good evening.
Good
Good evening.
Before we get started, I would like to introduce my partner assisting me in the superintendent search, Dr. Roger Collins, who's sitting in the corner in the back. He is the former superintendent in Nelson County. As you know, Real Synergy has been secured to assist the Amherst County School Board with the process of selecting your next school superintendent. Part of this process includes multiple ways to solicit input from the school community and the community at large on the skills, characteristics, knowledge, and attributes of the next school superintendent. There are several ways for everyone in Amherst County community to have input. Over the last 2 days, Real Synergy has conducted over 50 face-to-face interviews of identified community leaders and school personnel. We have more to do tomorrow. The input from tonight's input session will be combined with the face-to-face interview data. An online survey will be posted on the school division's website beginning tomorrow until next Friday. Again, this data will be combined with the public hearing data and the face-to-face data. From these 3 data points, the school board will develop a superintendent's profile, which will describe the next superintendent. The school board will have a called school board meeting on Saturday, March the 5th, beginning at 10 a.m. to consider all of this data. This profile will be used by the school board to develop the superintendent application and interview questions, but more importantly, describe the next superintendent to prospective candidates. The goal throughout this process is to find the match between the profile, what the community desires, and the skills of the successful candidate. The school division's website will be the conduit in sharing information about the superintendent search with the community and prospective candidates. Beginning tomorrow, The timeline for the process and the survey will be posted. But let me briefly outline this process and timeline for you. So the superintendent's profile and job application will be developed on Saturday, March the 5th. The superintendent's profile and superintendent application will be posted on the website Monday, March 7th. From March 7th to March 28th, the school board will be in receipt of applications from candidates. On April 2nd, the school board will review all of the applications and determine the pool of candidates to be interviewed. First round and second round interviews will be conducted from April 8th to April 22nd. And in May, the new school superintendent will be introduced to the community. As you can tell, this is a pretty aggressive process, but Real Synergy is committed to assisting the Amherst County School Board in finding the match, the right match. I'd like to thank the school board for the opportunity to really get to know the Amherst County community. Both Roger and I have been in all the schools in the last 2 days, and this is probably a gem in the crown of Virginia in terms of public schools. We have really had a fantastic time. Everybody here has been very welcoming to us, and we look forward to working with you and the community to find your next school superintendent. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Board, do you have any questions for Dr. Martin?
I can tell Dawn is thinking of one. I interviewed her this afternoon, and I know the eyes now, and I can tell she wants to ask me something.
Okay. Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I ask a question?
Yes, Ms.
Okay.
Justice.
Dr. Martin, how do we reach those in our community that are not on social media or not all that tech savvy?
A very good question, and I've had that one before, and I will talk to Natalia. What we can do is have hard copies here at the board office of the survey, and people can come by and fill those out and just slip them in an envelope. And then that'll get to us as well.
Madam Chairman,
Certainly, go ahead.
is it possible to have hard copies that may be available at schools?
Sure, absolutely.
Excellent idea.
We want as much input as possible because the more stakeholder input, we'll be able to get to see the trends across all the groups. And so the more we have, the more data we have, it makes it a very robust profile. And you'll see what the community is looking for.
Well, Dr. Martin, I know that we have worked together before here in Amherst County, and I'm looking forward to doing that again. You certainly helped make it a very valid process and a very smooth one for us in the past. So look forward to working with you and Dr. Collins.
And you know, we've changed a little bit, Abby.
Yes,
Your hair
yes,
and my hair.
yes.
I have less of it now.
Yeah, and mine's whiter.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we look forward to the comments tonight from the public.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go into our public hearing concerning the superintendent search. I have 2 people on the list to speak, and then I have 1 letter to read. I had 1 letter that came in and asked me to read it, but I'm going to consult it with our consultants, and we're going to send that letter on because I think that letter was more appropriate to be considered as we go through the process than just today. So our first speaker today is Mrs. Beverly Jones.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members. I'm Beverly Jones, and I am the Education Committee Chair for the Amherst County branch of the NAACP. And these are our visions for superintendent profile. And here are copies also for the board. Thank you. Number 1 has a clear vision for Amherst County Public Schools, partners with the school board, and set the vision and ensure that the vision is achieved. Be an instructional leader make sure students are learning and achieving at high levels, visit classrooms, and observe. Be an effective communicator, communicate the needs and accomplishments of Amherst County Public Schools, and attend school events. Be a good listener. Take into account differing viewpoints and then make the best decision for all. Take into consideration community input from administrators, teachers, students, and parents. Be not afraid to take a risk and make a commitment. Example, the majority of second graders will be able to read by the end of the school year. Put the program and resources in place to achieve these goals. Must be flexible in order to manage the politics of the job. Adapt to new board members and changes in the school community while not sacrificing the division's vision. Base all decisions on what is best for all students, with a clear focus on closing the achievement gap. Visit schools regularly to know both staff and students. Be an effective leader who holds principals and the staff accountable for the culture of their schools. And this is a little sidebar. The pandemic, we know, has caused a lot of hardships, frustrations, discipline problems, combativeness, resignations, anger, and disruptive learning environment. But the 2022-23 school year will be a new beginning with a new superintendent that will need all of us working together to make a difference for every child, every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
Madam Chair, does somebody have
Mrs.
an extra? We didn't have enough to go all the way down.
Yeah,
Okay,
do we need one or two more?
just one more,
Just
please.
one more. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Dawn Poole.
Do I need to state my name and address like
Um,
before?
yes, please.
Okay. Dawn Poole, 2732 Buffalo Springs Turnpike, Monroe, Virginia, 24574.
Thank you.
Good evening, school board members. I appreciate the board asking for public input on the qualities of our next superintendent. I hope the request was genuine and that each of you are really able to listen to your constituents. I'm a resource manager with Talent Solutions, TAPFIN, a manpower group company, so I'm an expert in finding the right talent for jobs across various labor markets, including the professional category, and that's across the country. I'll quickly list the qualities you should seek in our next superintendent, but I want you to keep in mind that we expect the same qualities from all of you, and improvement starts with strong leadership by our board. Select someone who will listen to Amherst County citizens and make their needs the priority instead of the needs of the administration. The candidate should be willing to put the students first while understanding that parents know what is best for their kids. The employees we want running our schools are already putting the students first, and the others who are not are replaceable. There is a candidate market for teachers that can teach in a pre-pandemic environment, and based on Manpower Group's most recent labor report, 69% of U.S. employees want their daily work to help better their community, and 75% want the places they work for to have similar values to their own. Amherst County is no exception, so let's make our schools an attractive place to work. The school board and the next superintendent must be transparent and great communicators. I encourage you to put a lot of effort into researching how you will be more transparent with each other and with the community in the future. I'm not trying to make it personal, but many of us would love to understand why 3 of you are consistently flip-flopping on important issues.
Excuse me, just stick to the superintendency, please.
Absolutely. The school board and the superintendent should have a vision that is flexible enough to fit our community, well thought out, and proactive to the community and student concerns. I feel it's important that we stop reacting to our changing world and start taking a more proactive approach. The superintendent should be making the shared vision a reality, and the board should be holding the superintendent accountable for when they fail to do so. The board manages the superintendent. That must change with our next superintendent. In closing, I would encourage you to ask the superintendent candidates the following questions, keeping in mind we seek these same qualities from you. How will you build public support? How will you help schools improve or how have you helped schools improve in your past experiences? Explain your idea of how decisions will be made and implemented in our school system, and how will you develop teachers and staff for leadership roles in our community? I would be happy to talk with any of you about my expertise in recruiting and selecting top candidates for the past 10 years. I'm very happy to see that you've hired a consultant, Real Synergy, to help you with that, and I do thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Poole. Appreciate that. I have a letter that I've been asked to read. It says, "My name is Lacey Fink, and I live at 170 Nottoway Drive, Madison Heights. I'm a parent of 3 Amherst County High School graduates and a 4th and 5th grader at Elon. Thank you for the public hearing to listen to our community's thoughts on our next Amherst County Public School Superintendent. I hope that you are flooded with applications. However, I can't fathom that this will be the case. I encourage you to look for a person that first loves children, all children, someone who will prioritize safety and discipline in our schools. It's one thing to say we have an anti-bullying policy, but another to do something about those hurting others. Someone that also values his or her employees and will fight to keep great educators. Someone who promotes from within, and someone who backs up teachers when necessary. We need someone smart and decisive, someone who will continue to work to provide internet to our entire county and understand the challenges of rural public education. We need someone who can lead the charge to increase opportunities for CTE, advanced placement, early college, STEM, the arts, and governor's school. I pray that we are overwhelmed with great candidates who can check every box. However, I worry that we will be challenged to find the quality leader our children deserve. Lastly, I encourage you to take a long, hard look in our own backyards and consider if we are the kind of board that a star superintendent would want to work for. We want to be a place that values education and opportunities." So that's all I have. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to talk with us while our consultants are here and would like to share with us your thoughts about the next superintendent? In the front row right here, Mr. Strosom.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. Sid Storozum, 362 Peters Hollow Road. You probably all know my address by heart by now, Monroe, Virginia. To determine the type of superintendent we need for Amherst County Public Schools, we need to revisit the legitimate goals of a public school education. Historically, our founding fathers understood that the preservation of American democracy depended upon an educated and competent citizenry. To that end, Americans must be ready to participate in civic life by being able to understand political, social, and economic issues, and thereby be able to vote wisely, protect their constitutional rights and freedoms, and resist the many tyrants that predictably arise with frequency on the world stage and even among our own people. Virtuous moral character and self-reliance were also understood to be essential to create an engaged and resilient population. Horace Mann summed it up as the need for a moral, literate, and productive citizenry. So what do we need in a superintendent? I believe we need a person who is smart, honest, a good leader, and who will conduct school business in a fully transparent manner. Such a person would be very involved and visible within the schools. Such a person would likely then gain the trust and support of the entire educational community. We need a person who will reject state and federal programs that inject political ideology into the curriculum, together with the strings-attached free money that makes it so hard to resist. We need a superintendent that will treat all students, teachers, and parents fairly, governed by impartial and rigorous standards, whether it concerns academic and job performance or the handling of discipline problems. That is to say, we need equality under the rules, not equity. We need a superintendent that believes in going the extra mile to help each student realize his or her individual potential based on their individual needs rather than on divisive group classifications. and we need to stop wasting our time and money collecting data on various classifications. We need a superintendent who will hold parents accountable to do their part to prevent discipline problems in the classroom and recognize that Amherst County Public Schools is not a social services agency. We need a superintendent that will practice and encourage student, teacher, family, and taxpayer participation in the educational process as we are doing tonight. This means summarily rejecting the notion that the state knows best and that parents should just shut up. We also need someone who will not hold himself and his administration above the law, nor cover up malfeasance and conduct public business behind closed doors. We need someone who thinks for himself and will construct programs that meet educational needs of our local students. This means divorcing Amherst County Public Schools from the VSBA and other highly partisan and corrupted sources of educational resources, including a lot of the material on equity, social, emotional learning, cultural competency, and the like. And we need someone who will emphasize pro-American education.
Thank you, Mr. Strickson.
Can I finish my last sentence, please?
No, time's up. Thank you.
Your loss. Thank you very much.
You're welcome to leave that with us if you'd like.
I'll leave you a copy.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience on the back row?
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Ayau, 493 Thrashers Creek Road, and I am completing my 27th year teaching in Amherst County High School as an English teacher. There are times, I think, when we may need a fresh voice, someone new to the county, fresh insight, somebody new to the area. I strongly believe that now is not that time. The last 2 years have been very difficult. We need someone who is thoroughly informed on all the complexities, steps, procedures, plans that we have had to go through, that we have created, rather than someone who needs to learn the county and take the time to sort of get up to speed on everything that we have accomplished, had to plan, had to put in place, and why we've had to make those decisions. I believe that we need somebody who is responsive to the community, yet can also stand firm and stand by his or her own ground. I believe that we need someone who can balance the needs of students and teachers and parents equally, a triumvirate of equal importance, and that is no easy balance to achieve. I believe that we need somebody who already has a strong relationship with our community in order to help us to move forward after we've gotten through a very difficult time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ayau. Is there anyone else in tonight's audience that would like to share? Gentleman right there in the middle.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Joan Stanley. I live at 843 Father Judge Road in Monroe, Virginia, 24574, the great state of Monroe. I haven't served this school board for about 12 years and served with one of the ladies, I won't mention her name, and was honored to have picked or chosen 2 superintendents. I won't mention their names, but I've worked for 3. They were all fine people, and I enjoyed my time. Before you, and I know you will make the final decision, you have a monumental task, and you don't realize it until you get down to the very end and you say, is this the right person? We've been there. I was there for 2, as I say, choices, and it's not easy. You go to bed at night and think, did we do the right thing? The same way on the discipline committee, when you discipline a child at this school board, you go to bed at night and think, did I do the right thing? So what you need to do is, just from my experience, or consider, this is what you need to consider, you got to pick a leader. Leader, what is a leader? What is leadership? How do you define leadership? How do you use it? Well, here's one definition. A definition of a leader is the ability of a person to get someone to do something that they want done, that's the leader, through their own wanting to do it. In other words, I pick one of you and I want you to go move that chair. I've got to create the situation where you want to do it because you respect me, or you have my respect. So that's just the definition of it. As far as the second thing is achievement, student achievement. You've got to get someone who is all about student achievement. Student learning, you know, reading, writing, math, science, and they have those people around here. So I just want to wish you well and take that into consideration. I'm sure you will do a good job, and we'll all applaud you at the end. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Any other comments from the audience? Oh, yes, Mr. Porter. Yeah, I can't see you over there.
That's all right. I would like to, well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all this evening. I really can't add a whole lot to what the people who have already spoken have talked about in terms of leadership and in terms of what's important, except for this. I have worked with organizations to help them find a person who could best lead them. And the setting for that was a local church. And I've served in churches from California all the way here to Virginia. When it came to a pastor, I was looking for a person who loved God and loved people, and who could help people to want to be more in love with God and more in love with people. As I think about someone who would lead this school district, I would hope that they would be a person who was curious, who modeled curiosity, who wondered about things, who questioned things. I know that there are certain executive decisions that need to be made, and those are oftentimes difficult and oftentimes hard to work through. But I think that if you want to model for students and you want to model for people in the community what it means to be educated, there needs to be a sense of curiosity, and there needs to be a sense of wonder about all the wonderful things we can learn through our school system, through the process of learning. I think that needs to be embodied in the person who we hire as the superintendent. I wish you well. We'll pray for you all as you go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Anyone else? Oh. Forgive me, I started to say, Laurel, would you like to speak, but I couldn't remember your last name, so.
That's okay. Laurel Knopp,
Thank you.
823 Union Hill Road, Amherst, Virginia. I've wrote this speech like 5 times, and now it's not even going to work. But I am definitely going to piggyback on Mr. Jones Stanley, who, like he said, he was our school board member, and he came into our room, and he was amazing. He was always visible. He was always there. He was always seen, as was the superintendent that he did say that he hired, who was fabulous, who was friendly, who was down to earth, who was trustworthy and honest. And I liked what Jones Stanley said about leadership. He didn't lead us with force. That doesn't work. I teach teenagers, and if you want to get them to do something, you don't mandate. And we're no different. We need somebody that we can look up to, that we respect, that we admire. We've had that before. And we follow them because we love them, because we respect them. We respect who they are and how they lead, what they have to say, and we believe their vision because we work with them. We love kids. We don't do this because we make a ton of money. We do it because we love the kids, and we want somebody at the top who loves the kids as much as we do. And that's why they're there. And if you give us that person who's kind, caring, considerate, and honest, honest, and trustworthy, we'll follow them because that's who they are. And we'll be a team together with them. And this whole thing doesn't work if we're not a team. And a leader is a team builder. And that is what we need. Jones is right. We need a leader. And that's what we're looking for, a leader. So find us a good leader. Thank you. And thanks for letting us have input.
Thank you, Mrs. Knopp. All right, anyone else? In the far back. Mrs. Fales?
Hello, I am Cheryl Fales. I live at 950 Indian Creek Road, Amherst, Virginia. I am an educator, and I have put 2 children through Amherst County Public Schools. I most certainly want to piggyback off of our speakers, but I want to add, what makes Amherst magical? It's the people. I've worked actually under 5 different superintendents, and I think we all have one thing in common, that our students are our bright spot. I want a superintendent who has experience, who became a master teacher themselves, that have at least 7 to 10 years in the classroom. By definition, that's when you become a master teacher, 7 to 10 years. That has building administrative experience, not just at a high school level. We have one high school level. We have to get it right. We want our high school to be a flagship high school. We'd like a superintendent who also has had either middle school or elementary school experience, as well as central office experience. Leadership is important. I'm not necessarily a follower, but I will follow somebody with strong leadership skills that has the community in their heart, who understands the demographic, who understands where we need to go from here, to help us navigate through challenging times, that has a vision, who's trustworthy. Those are all qualities. Honesty. I will follow someone like that. Most certainly. We know we have some challenges ahead of us as a result of COVID. And I will say this, social promotion. We have attendance issues, behavioral issues. We have academic issues. But even with all those issues, we're here because we care about our students, and we want to get it right. We can't afford to get this wrong. We need someone who understands our demographic, our culture, and who we are as a community, and can lead us forward. And I will leave it at that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Fales. Is there anyone else? Well, let me close in saying, someone had asked me, about this process, and I know that Dr. Martin and Dr. Collins have been doing interviews yesterday, today, and again tomorrow. Just want to assure everyone that we are trying to make sure that we have been inclusive of including teachers at all the different school grade levels. We've included parents, we've included students, people in our community. So I think that we have been trying to get a wide range of people with these 2 consultants so that they can take the pulse of our community and where we want to go. And I just want to thank everyone who spoke tonight. I just really appreciate your passion and your vision, that you have some clear goals, that you are looking for a leader. And in these uncertain times, that's very important. So I just thank you for all of that. I value everything you all said. Board members, anybody have any comments before we close? Mrs. Justice?
Madam Chairwoman, I love hearing the passion and all the value that every one of you shared about your community. That's Amherst, and we haven't had a chance to hear a lot of Amherst over the last year or so.
Well, thank you very much. If there's no one else, we will close public hearing. Have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from
Mr. Terry.
Mr. Terry, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we are going to take a brief moment to go into closed session. I don't believe that this will take too long.
I can
Dr.
read when you
Wells,
want me to, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay. So pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia, I recommend the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing legal matters pertaining to mitigation strategies.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion to go into closed session. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mrs. Justice. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. We are now in closed session.
Hello, I'm Rob Arnold, Superintendent of Amherst County Public Schools, and today we're at River Edge Park here in Madison Heights, just next to the James River, and our 7th graders from Amherst Middle School are here today working on the annual James River Association project, and those students have access to canoeing in the river. They're going to learn about the ecosystem, they're going to learn about the watershed, they're going to learn about pollution in the river and how to avoid that and how to keep a healthy environment here. But really for us, it is about what we want to do with our children in Amherst County. We talk about making students life ready. And we don't believe that students can be life ready by sitting in a classroom and reading textbooks and answering worksheets and coming up with definitions. They need to take that information and they need to come out here and they actually need to get their hands on it. It needs to be relevant. They need to think critically about the things that they're learning and help solve problems like pollution in our rivers and certain things like that. And so that's why we're here today. That's why we think this is so important. That's why our relationship with the James River Association is so valuable, because it gives kids relevance in their learning and they become life-ready students. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. We're here with the James River Association at Rivers Edge Park, and this is part of our NOAA BWET grant, in which we're working with our 7th grade students. And so we have our 7th grade teachers here today, and they're paddling across the river right now. And we're going to do a macroinvertebrate search in a minute. So we're teaching people how to use the kayaks. Then we're going to do the macroinvertebrate search. And we also have a group working, looking at the macroinvertebrates, learning about the river. So here's part of our education for the James River. And stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Rob Campbell, Senior Manager in our Upper James River Center for the James River Association. We're happy to take partnership with all of our local school districts here with Amherst County and Lynchburg City Schools and some others up here, as well as our friends downstream in Surrey County, to take place in this NOAA BWET grant. It's such an amazing thing to get kids out on the water. One of my favorite things is taking folks that have grew up by the river their whole life or grown up in the area and get them out on a resource that they've never been on before, even though it's right in their backyard. Teaching these kids how to kayak is one of the most rewarding things. Seeing people come in with absolute zero experience and leave out of here with some knowledge and actually pretty capable in these kayaks. It's pretty impressive how fast these kids can progress in the time that we have with them on the river. When we take them out, we go and look for some macroinvertebrates while we're out on the river, and when we're looking for those, we're trying to gauge the health of the river. All those little critters that we're finding down there, each one of them scores differently when it comes to being able to live in polluted water. So those critters that we find there are able to tell us the health of the water, and we're telling those kids all about that and why we're looking for these specific critters. And two, we're looking at the health of the river in the long term. Where we find these critters living in the river, they've been there for a long time. And that's the lesson that we want to try and instill with the kids, is the James is a improving river. Still got work to do, but it's been improving for a long time. So we've got a lot to be proud of. So with this program, we're just going to be getting kids involved more and more on being on the river, showing them ways to bring themselves back to the river, their family, their friends, to come back and enjoy it some more on into the future, so that they'll be there to help protect this resource. This is a very, very important resource that goes all the way down to the Chesapeake Bay to help keep that restored as well. So proud for the work we do.
Hey, I'm Kendall Jewell. I'm an educator here at the James River Association. I love being able to teach these kids about the concepts they're learning in the classroom because we're out in the field. Things are a lot more dynamic out here. We are learning about food webs and food chains specifically for the Upper James River. The Lower James River students will be doing the same thing with animals in their area. So we're going to be coming together and seeing how things are different there. And we've also got watersheds out here. So we're learning about watersheds using fun activities and games. And it's a lot different from learning about it in a book or through lecture, because when you really see it, you can see what defines it and how it's different from what's on the paper.
I go to Amherst Middle School, and today I learned about what lives in the river and the food chain and how the animals survive in the wild.
My name is Logan Birch. I'm in 7th grade and I go to Amherst Middle School. I learned that the different parts of the watershed and how they connected and stuff is pretty cool, how this river is very clean.
My name is Tommy Carver. I'm in the 7th grade and I go to Amherst Middle School. We learned about how the watersheds connect to the rivers, and we learned about the states that are in the watershed of the Chesapeake Bay.
Hey everybody, I'm Todd Mosley. I'm an environmental educator here at JRA and excited to be working with Amherst Middle School today and this week on our NOAA BWET grant. And it's great to get these kids out here to have them learn a little bit about the river that's in their own backyard, and looking forward to making the PSA that'll our mountain Amherst County kids will be able to tell our kids in Hopewell and Surrey about their river, which is technically the same river, but it's so different up here in the mountains in Amherst than it is down there in the tidewater in Hopewell and Surrey. That it'll be a cool experience for the kids to kind of have an exchange talking about the same river.
My name is Resley. I'm in the 7th grade and I go to Amherst Middle School.
I'm Madison Alden and I'm 7th grade and I go to the same school as her.
I learned that microinvertebrates actually do not have any spines. I think it's really cool how you can go by diagrams to figure out which microorganism is what it is. Something that could be improved is that there are a little bit more of a different variety of different bugs that you could look at. But overall, it has been great so far.
I've learned a lot actually. There's a lot of different types of bugs, and I find it very interesting that these scientists had to go through a lot of work to find what they had, what they did, and all the other bugs that are in this place.
Hey everybody, I'm Connor Schrader with the James River Association. I'm the lead educator down here at the Lynchburg office. We get to have all of the Amherst 7th grade come down this week, where we get to do 3 different stations where they get to learn how to kayak, they get to do a watershed lesson, and they get to do live macroinvertebrate testing. This is a great week for all of us because our overarching goal for this is to really create the next generation of environmental stewards, and this is the best way that we can possibly do it. We're very excited.
It's really cool to see all the kids out here on the gravel bar to go from seeing these macroinvertebrates that look like spooky water centipedes that they don't want anything to do with, to us telling them a little bit about it and being comfortable holding them or even letting them crawl in their hands. So it's really neat to kind of show these kids how they can be environmentally literate and how they can be the next generation of protectors of this river and our ecosystem.
Thank you for watching our featured program. The program shows Amherst County Public Schools' effort to innovate our science and curriculum programs to offer deeper learning opportunities for students, where they apply learned skills to real-life experiences. This innovation to Amherst County Public Schools science curriculum was made possible through the joint partnership with the James River Association. The James River Association works to educate citizens on the health of the James River by promoting conservation and responsible stewardship of its natural resources. The James River is a significant water source that flows through Amherst County. In addition, all the streams in Amherst County flow into the James River. It's important that our students are educated to take responsibility to maintain its health and conservation. So here in Amherst County, we have programs designed to get our students involved in natural resources studies. So one thing we have is our Trout in the Classroom project. Our Trout in the Classroom project is in all schools in Amherst County. We get eggs from the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources in the fall, usually in October, and we put those in our schools, and the students and teachers in those schools raise those eggs into trout. We usually about April, we take those trout that they've raised and we stock them into Peddler River on some private property in the Peddler River. 3rd graders there, and they do biotic water sampling, in which they look for the insects and macroinvertebrates that live in the water, and identify those insects and then use that to determine the water quality of the Peddler River. In middle school, we also have a project in which we were working with the James River Association, and we have a NOAA BWET grant, which this is part of this video you've seen earlier today, in which the students do the biotic water quality sampling down to James River. They also learn the aspects of what you saw in the video. But then in the winter and spring, we're also going to bring those students in, and they're going to design and develop a program in which they identify problems with the river, and they have to develop a plan to solve that problem. And then we're going to present our issues that we have here in Amherst County with those in Surrey and Hopewell. Because part of this BWET grant is a 3-division BWET grant that we have that covers us, Surrey, and Hopewell. And these students will work together on these projects, and then in the spring, we'll present our information to them, and they'll present their studies to our students. They can all see how what we do here in Amherst County impacts Hopewell, and what Hopewell does impacts Surrey, so they can kind of get a big picture of what the James River ecosystem is about, from the upper James to the lower James. At the secondary level, at the high school level, our biotool ecology classes and environmental science classes, those students will also do biotic and abiotic water quality samplings on the James River. Again, we're here at the Old Mill Park here in Amherst today, but here at Rutledge Creek, we have some issues of sedimentation and other things here in this part of the county. So they're going to design a feature here to look at what they can do to improve the water quality here at this park, and then we're going to work with the town of Amherst and present that information to the town of Amherst. At the end, we have a place where they can actually take what they've learned and apply that to real-world problems and design a study to fix some of these issues that are facing the James River watershed. So again, we thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed our program, and let's do our best to keep the James River clean. Thank you.
Using Powtoon.
Hi, I'm Dr. Derek Brown, principal at Amherst County High School. Why should you come work for Amherst County Public Schools? Well, I know people say that kids are great, and kids are great everywhere, but I am so serious when I say there's something different about these kids. They are just amazing. They're self-starting, they're inquisitive, they are kind and caring, they care about their community, and it's just something different about our students that really makes Amherst County special. We are a great and loving community, and we're a really tight-knit community. It's a small rural area, and if you are really looking to make a difference in the lives of some amazing kids, Amherst County Public Schools is a place for you.
Hi, my name is Derek Adam. I'm the principal of Central Elementary School. So why choose Amherst County Public Schools? The reason for that is 9 years ago I started my educational career here in Amherst County Public Schools as a teacher. Also within Amherst County Public Schools, I became an assistant principal and a principal, and the reason I say that is we take care of our own, and we're also student-centered, so if that sounds like a team you want to be a part of, please join our team.
Hello, my name is Jay Sells, and I happen to be the proud principal of Amherst Elementary School. We sit on the county's south side, if you will. Wonderful, wonderful things that go on in our county day in and day out, but I would love to just say this. If you don't hear me say anything else, our school creed, the theme is just like family. It's not just in our school, but I truly feel like the greater Amherst County really is a just like family feel.
Hello everyone, I am Mrs. Kimberly Scott, proud principal of Elam Elementary School. I come before you today just to talk about how wonderful and special Amherst County Public Schools are to everyone. I'm very proud to be a part of Amherst County Public Schools. I think from elementary to secondary, every school is unique in a very special way and has something to offer everyone who comes. With that being said, we're all about every child every day. I do believe that for those who choose to come to Amherst County Public Schools, you're led in a very special way. And with that being said, Amherst County has been all about developing relationships within the community, as well as, equally important other than student success, supporting those incoming individuals who have been called to do teaching and all other support positions that go along with making a successful school day. We are Amherst County Public Schools, and I encourage you to be led to come to us and help make a difference in the lives of our students.
Hi, my name is Kelly Holmes, and I'm principal at Amherst Middle School. Amherst County Public Schools is a great place for families and students. We work very hard to build relationships, and we put our students first. Again, Amherst County Public Schools is a great place to learn.
I'm Joey Crawford, and I am the principal at Temperance Elementary School in Amherst County, Virginia. Why did I choose Amherst County Public Schools? Quite frankly, it's home, and the support that you get from the top all the way down. If you want to have great support from your central office administration and from your building level, come to Amherst County Public Schools. And again, it's home.
Hi, I'm Leah Gray, and I'm the principal at Manellison Middle School.
One of the reasons I love working for Amherst County Public Schools is because we are working to prepare our students to be future-ready learners.
Hello, I'm Dr. William Wells, Assistant Superintendent of Amherst County Schools. We'd like to welcome you today to our open house.
motion to come out of closed meeting?
So move.
I have a motion to come out of closed meeting from Mr. Greiser. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Need a certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Amherst County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote, and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such a closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Amherst County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered. Need a motion to certify.
Make a motion to certify.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
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 Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We are moving now into the superintendent's presentation of his proposed budget. Dr. Arnold?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, I am going to present the proposed fiscal year 2022-23 school operational budget. You know, when we look at budgets, we always say budgets should reflect our priorities, and our priorities are always our children and the people who educate them. And this budget should reflect our desire to show our staff the value that we place in them. This budget that you'll see tonight is also designed to meet several student needs, ranging from pre-K programs to special ed programs to career technical education programs. And it's all to meet our vision and our mission. And I will remind everyone here that our vision is Amherst County Public Schools will cultivate excellence in every child every day. And our mission is that Amherst County Public Schools will create a culture that inspires excellence in academics, career readiness, and citizenship in every child. So here are the proposed changes to this year. So we need to keep in mind that we have three proposed budgets that we're currently looking at. Before Christmas, we received Governor Northam's proposed budget. And then on Sunday, this past Sunday, the House gave us their version and the Senate gave us their versions. Now, the House and Senate versions don't have the calculation tools with it yet, so we're still waiting on those. So I'm going to kind of briefly review the differences in them. The governor's proposal, as you guys know, called for a 5% increase during this year, a 10% increase for all staff over the biennium. He also put in a $2.4 million construction, a one-time construction fund for the school system, or our school system, to put towards construction projects. That's a one-time money. Comparing that budget with the House's proposal, instead of the $2.4 million, the construction money would be made available through a competitive grant, so we would have to apply for a grant to access construction money. They are calling for a 4% increase and then a 1% bonus each year, which brings their total in comparison to the governor's budget at under $374,000, so it's less than what the governor is proposing. The Senate, on the other hand, kept the same $2.4 million in place for the school construction, and they looked at a 5% increase and a $1,000 bonus to all staff in this school year, so at the end of this school year. That would be about $569,000 better than the governor's budget. So what you will see tonight is our budget is going to be based on the governor's budget, because we believe that even if the House budget were to come in, we can make that work with the budget that I'm going to propose to you tonight. Now, of course, if we get better than that with the Senate, then we'll have some decisions to make going forward, but they're all good decisions, okay? So the first things that you will see are the added expenditures that we're looking at. Happy to report that we would like to offer a 6.5% pay increase to all staff, that is classified and certified staff. As you know, 1% salary increase for us costs about $390,000, so it's about $2.5 million additional expenditures. Currently, we are dealing with substitute shortages, as all school divisions are, so we want to increase that pay, and we also need to increase to go beyond our requirement with minimum wage beyond $12. So that would cost us roughly $16,000. 2 years ago, we had compressed scales in the certified lines. So basically what was happening is during the 2010s, when no money was going into the budget, no new money was going into the budget, we had lots of pay scales that did not move. And so we had a situation where a second-year teacher would make the same as an 8-year teacher. And so we had to pull those scales apart. We did that 2 years ago. We're going to do that with the classified staff this year. So all of our classified personnel will pull those pay lines away from each other, and that'll be about $76,000 increase. The next one is intensive support stipends. So the best way to explain this is that we have programs that require intensive services. So if you think about in our special education programs, our early childhood special education, our intellectual disabilities, our autism programs, our behavior programs, those require really intensive services. And those positions, whether they're the teachers or the instructional assistants, are very hard to find and then retain. So we have lots of turnover. Those are very, very difficult positions. So in order to incentivize the recruitment and the retention of those employees, we would like to offer stipends for both the teachers and the IAs in those programs, which would cost about $162,000. We have 3 additional positions listed. One is a cosmetology teacher to increase our CTE offerings at the high school, an early childhood itinerant teacher. And so not all students who qualify for early childhood special education come to our schools for that program. Several of them stay in the community, whether they're at another daycare program, if they're being successful there, but we still need to provide services. So we need a person to be able to go out into the community and work with those students. And finally, we need to add another VPI position. The pre-K program will be adding standards. The state is applying standards to our pre-K program, which this would be the first time ever, and so we're going to need more support there. So those are the additional positions. Health insurance, which is always an issue, we are putting in a marker here because we don't really get the real number for several more months. So we are being very conservative, and we're putting an 8.9% increase, which is a $300,000 marker. We anticipate that, we expect that number to come down, but we're just trying to be conservative in our how we budget that. We want to continue to support the CTE Regional Academy with increasing tuition for students that go to that. CVCC's tuition, the Virginia Community College system has told Virginia CVCC that they can no longer waive the student fees For the students, our students that take CVCC classes, they used to waive those fees. They can't do that, so we're going to have to pay that, and that's going to be about $9,000. We have several renewals, Southern Air, Callan Ed, Power School. These are different programs that we need to run, and that's the cost. That's about $21,000 total. Textbook funding we get from the state, but we also have to match those funds, and so we're going to have to match up to $74,000 in textbook funds. I have put in the school construction at $2.4 million. Remember, that is one-time funding when we talk about this money. And we now have a person sitting beside me every Thursday night. We're going to need to increase our legal services. We've put $50,000 more in that line. And as you've heard from Ms. Lukanich for the last couple of months, fuel lines, the fuel prices have gone up, and so we need to make sure that we are addressing that by increasing that by about $133,000. And then that last one is a $142,000 reduction because of attrition from last year. And we actually hired a speech teacher instead of having to contract a speech teacher, and that's a lot cheaper. So that'll save us about $142,000. All told, this budget will add $5.8 million to our operational budget. Okay? So last year our budget was $46,700,000. Adding $5.8 million brings us to $52,557,000. Remember, though, there's stars beside those because that 2.4 is in there, so that's not what it will look like next year. That 2.4 will come out. So it's a little higher than it would normally be. Okay, so this is what all of our budgets and all of our expenditures look like, because the 52.5 is just our school operational budget. The child nutrition sits in a separate budget, and we are budgeting $2.4 million for that. Our federal programs, the title programs, is at $3 million. And then we have, and this is over the course of 2 years now, so last year and this year, we have $5.1 million in CARES funding that we'll need to spend this next year. And so that all told for FY 22-23 is $63 million. I want to go over a little bit that $5 million in the CARES budget. So please remember, and we did this last year, this CARES portion is separate from our school operational budget. Okay, so this $5 million that I'm going to talk about, most of the positions that you see up there you all have approved them last year, and they are just a continuation of what we did last year into next year, because as you remember, it's over 2 to 3 years that we can spend this money. So all of these positions, the ones that we did not fill, it was because once the school year started, many of these positions would be our own teachers, and we didn't want to pull people out of classrooms during the middle of the year to fill these positions, so we held off on some of those positions, but we will start to add those this spring. You'll see a large number under summer school. We had a very successful summer school last year, and it's a really important part of us getting our students back to where they need to be. So that's obviously a big number, but that's all CARES Act money, and that's $444,000 to pay summer school teachers. And so personnel next year in CARES funding will be at $1.5 million. I'm going to move that forward onto this slide, and then you can see some of the other things that we're doing with CARES funding. Wi-Fi service with hotspots to homes. We have, contracted behavior specialists, summer school non-personnel, and then you'll see the big one there at the end. That's $2.6 million towards the auditorium. So the auditorium project, we will actually be starting that next year and during next year's school year, and we have budgeted $2.6 million out of that CARES Act to get us through the initial architectural designing, and then part of the initial construction. So that's the 5.1 for CARES funding. So how do we pay for $5.8 million more in our budget? This is the revenue that we're getting. So the state is providing a little bit more than $3 million more in revenue, plus $687,000 more in state sales tax. Once again, that 2.4 in state school construction is in there. And so that's where you get the 5.8 million. Child nutrition will be receiving about 79,000 more. And that CARES, it doesn't equal 5.1 because remember, we're also talking about money from last year as well. So we're only adding 2.9 new monies to that 5.1. So that's a 2.9 this year, 2.2 last year, which gets you to that 5.1 in CARES Act. And so by taking all that revenue and all those expenditures and putting them together and asking the Board of Supervisors to give us $13,902,089, which should look familiar because it's the exact same amount we have requested from them for the last 4 years. So we are asking for level funding again from the Board of Supervisors, and if they are to meet that, then we will have a level budget at $63,258,000. Now, of course, when we budget, we have to make sure, since most of our state money is based on enrollment, so we have to make our enrollment projections. This is our projection for the upcoming year. Obviously, over the last 2 years, it's been very volatile and hard to predict, but we have projected it at 3,833 students. The governor projected us at 3,838. We will use that number just like we used the number they gave us last year because there is hold harmless monies in our budget. So basically what that means is whether we have 3,838 in our buildings next year, that's what we're going to get money for. So if we have less, we're not going to lose money. And so that's comfort to all the schools that all of the budgets have that hold harmless money in it. So in past years, we've had to really work hard to get the enrollment right. They're telling us what it's going to be, and they're going to pay us for it. So that takes a little bit of the heavy lifting off of us. This is a chart of the local funding. So if you read it basically from bottom to top, and if you look at it and you come all the way over to the far right, so this is the money that the Board of Supervisors gives to the school budget. Every school board, every locality are required by law to apply a certain amount of money to a school budget. So if you look on the far right, in 2014, where it says 170%, basically what that means is the Board of Supervisors paid to our budget 70% more than they were required to, okay? As the years have gone along, though, that number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So this year, they would be at 10% above. And the reason I bring that up is because, so we haven't asked for more money in many years, but they are coming to a point where, by law, they're going to have to put more money towards our budget. And it's really important for next year because one of the things that I haven't talked about so far is how to get to that 10% over 2 years. The governor's budget has paid for the 5% for this year, and there's not a lot of money in it in the second year of the biennium, so it means it's going to be on us as a school division to meet that 10% over 2 years. So this year, if we're doing 6.5, you would be responsible the following year for 3.5 in order to get all the state dollars for the 10% over the biennium, which would probably require us to ask the Board of Supervisors for some more money the following year. so next year. And the only reason I put this up is for future planning. It doesn't have anything to do necessarily with this upcoming budget, but the following budget, we're going to have to work with the Board of Supervisors and start to talk about these things. So that is the 2022-23 fiscal year school operational proposed budget. On Thursday, March the 3rd, we will reconvene here, I believe at 8:30. 9 o'clock, 8:30 if you want coffee, 9 o'clock, and we will go over in great detail the books that are at your place. If they're not at your place, they will be at your place. And we will go through all of the rationale, all of the additions. We'll talk about capital improvement. We'll talk about the construction projects, all of the things that you'll find in this book. So what I would respectfully ask you to do over the course of the next week is dig into this, think about it, if you have questions, by all means, let us know earlier rather than later, because we can prepare for that for Thursday, because any question you have, others might have. So if we can make sure we're prepared for that, that would be helpful. But we will certainly have a day-long presentation for you to walk you through all of this budgeting process. All in all, it is a very positive budget. 6.5% for staff is fantastic. And after these 2 years, they deserve everything we can give to them. So I thank you for your attention, and that is all for the budget presentation, Madam Chair, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Arnold. It's always nice to have a good, positive budget, and I will say it's been nice the last 4 years that we haven't had to ask for some additional funds, especially with the support that we're getting with construction on the school auditorium. So Board of Supervisors has been very helpful with us, so thank you very much. I know that we are, board members, we're going to meet on March 3rd for a work session about the budget, and I just want to remind you to dig in ahead of time, and please send any questions you have. You can send them to me, Dr. Arnold, because the board wants to answer them, but they just need time to pull that information together for us. So the sooner we get questions, the kinder and more respectful I think we will be to our staff. Okay, Dr. Arnold, we are on Superintendents Matters.
So board norms. So what came up at the last meeting is that we have a set of board norms that the board approved in February of 2020. Those are the norms that kind of guide our work together. They guide our work with the public. They guide our work with media organizations and those kinds of things. It allows us to function efficiently. One of the things that we've been trying to do for the last couple of years is to redo those, just because new members have come on in that time. And we were able to work with the Virginia School Board Association. Basically what they do is they facilitate that process between the board and myself to work through to develop norms. Since I am retiring and I am leaving in the end of June, what the VSBA recommended is that you wait until July and do this process with a new person. But if you did not want to do that and you wanted to set up norms that were different with me for the next 3 months, then we need to do that on March the 3rd, part of the day that we are going to be here with the budget retreat. And so that was my question last time. Do you want to wait until July and just use the norms that we currently have in place as our guide for the remainder of this school year?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arnold. Board members, do you want to have any discussion about that before we make a motion and make a decision about how you're feeling?
Madam Chairman, excuse me, Madam Chairman, I would like to have further discussion. I'm not comfortable with the norms as they are. So that's my personal feeling.
Okay, and just to make sure that I'm clear, we're having discussion now not about specifics, but I think the question on the table is, do we want to approve these to last us until July or redo them now? I think what you're saying is you would prefer to deal with these and come up with new ones on March 3rd?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, is there a way that we could suspend the board norms and just come up with a new set of them underneath our new superintendent?
Well, I believe that that was what Dr. Arnold is recommending from the VSBA, is that we do them in July with the new superintendent. But I don't believe that we should suspend our board norms because it is how we interact and what we commit to one another as a group. So I think it should, from my personal opinion, I would like to see us to have either the current ones or take time to actually come up with new ones that we agree on. But that's my viewpoint. Anybody else have thoughts?
No, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think that is right. That's the option. We're either going to stick with what we have, or we have to come up with something new to get us through for the next couple months until we get a new superintendent. So
Yes.
yeah. So we can't go without. Right.
Okay. Ms. Legan, do you have a preference?
Same one, what you two said.
Yeah.
Mr. Greiser?
We voted and approved them in February 2020, and they're in effect, so I agree. I think we just wait to the new superintendent. I mean, it's a matter of efficiency, just have that discussion with whoever the new superintendent is. So I'm in favor of leaving these in place and having that discussion in July.
Okay. Mr. Arasi?
The orders that are in place now, they won't impede our decision-making moving forward with the new superintendent process or anything like that?
No, it's just how we, what we decide how we're going to interact with each other. It's just, the way we will treat each other respectfully and that kind of thing. And those norms were given to you, I think, at the last meeting. Have you had a time to review them?
Yes, I did review them.
Yeah, no, it doesn't affect our decision-making process at all. In my mind, does it in yours?
It's just communication.
Yeah, just how we communicate, just how we decide that we agree to work together.
Thank you.
Anybody
Madam
else?
Chairwoman, may I speak again? Or did
Certainly.
Mr. Terry speak?
Yeah, they all, your
Okay.
turn.
I think, I'm not going to speak details about the norms and governances, but to me, there are categories that are not very clear and could be interpreted to inhibit interaction with our constituents. And so I do feel in some ways they could be interpreted in such a manner as to inhibit how we are interacting with our constituents, with media, with social media, et cetera. And I think more discussion would be, from my perspective, would be beneficial.
Okay. Anyone else before I ask for a motion? Okay, could I have a motion on the floor as to whether we are going to move forward with the current board norms or whether we are going to revisit them on March 3rd? Anyone?
Madam Chairwoman, I move that we revisit the norms on March 3rd and make new norms we can agree to.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor from Mrs. Justice that we will revisit our norms on March 3rd with the VSBA. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Berg has seconded it. Any more discussion? Okay, board, if you're ready to vote, all of the members that are in favor of revisiting our norms on March 3rd with the VSBA, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, the board votes aye. So we will revisit norms on March 3rd. Okay? Thank you. Dr. Arnold? It's all mine, huh?
Yeah, it's all yours now.
I know that we made some changes into our agenda to discuss a few other items. One of the first ones that I have listed here, Board, is our requiring of mask wearing for staff. So I wanted to see if you had any discussion that you wanted to bring to the table about how you're feeling about considering our staff wearing masks at school.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Since
ma'am.
our students are currently mask optional, I think it's only fair, and I would like to make a motion to make mask optional also for our entire staff of the school.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to make masks optional for our staff while they are at school. I have a second by Mr.
Madam Chair, could I just add on to that to make that effective immediately, please?
Do I need to get a second and then do an amendment?
I think if you make the motion, you can second, if you're willing to let her remake that motion.
I second.
Thank you.
As
So
an
let me
effective.
just make sure that we're going to, you want us to consider mask wearing as optional for staff. And what was the second part?
Immediately.
Immediately. Okay, and I have a second from Mr. Orasi, was that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Board, do you have any discussion? Mrs. Berg, I know you've already said, do you have any more?
Oh, just, that I don't think it makes that much of a difference. We have our kids now where it's mask optional. I think it's only fair to allow the teachers to have their freedoms back also.
Okay.
And all our other staff, not just teachers, sorry.
Okay, anyone else want to speak?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Orasi?
Yeah, the way things are fluid and moving forward, I see it as becoming the new normal nowadays, thankfully. We're moving in that direction. I understand there is litigation happening right now or possible law changes that will probably impede any opposition to unmasking early. I don't see any reason to hinder it any further, and I'd like to see everybody's faces
Okay.
again.
And Mr. Orasi, are you talking about the DOLE regulations?
That is correct,
Okay,
yes,
that's what I
the
thought.
regulation, yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
As only approximately 10% of our population is staff and teachers, with 90% of our population mask optional, the risk to the health by our 10% teachers and stuff is limited. Also, I feel like we're having forethought in respecting Executive Order 6 from Governor Youngkin that is directing Department of Labor and Industry to ease on those mitigations, specifically with masks and teachers and staff. Now, I believe that this would also apply to visitors and volunteers. Is that correct?
Is that correct from the DOLE perspective, or is that just something that we
Should we
consider
make
in
an
our
amendment?
policy?
It wasn't,
The motion at this
all
point
right,
is
the
just for
motion didn't
staff.
talk about, it just,
And-
the
and-
motion said staff.
And DOLE only applies to employees. DOLE does not apply to
Correct.
visitors.
Okay, so while that's not part of what we're considering, it's something we could consider.
Sure.
as we
Madam
move
Chair, I
down
would be
the-
open to a amendment to my
Well,
motion.
I would say deal with that one and then
Yeah.
come right back and do
Okay.
the next
Another
one.
motion.
How about
Yeah,
that?
if we could, please,
So
that
we
would be
don't have
helpful.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that we will consider masks optional immediately for our staff while they're at school. Any other further discussion? Okay. I have a second, so I guess we're ready for the vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Then we also have agreed at the beginning that we would talk about mass,
Madam Chair, were we going to go back and make another motion to add on to mind for visitors then?
Certainly, I can
Okay.
do that now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just say adults.
Oh, adults. I would like to make a motion that all visitors and adults are able to go mask optional.
I second it. I second the motion.
Okay, do you have an amendment as to when?
Yes. I amend the motion to be effective immediately. So,
Okay, so I have
effective
a-
immediately, adults on the property would be mask optional.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that masks will become optional for visitors,
Adults.
adult visitors. And that was on the floor. We have, I need a second to that, I think.
May I change?
Can you, wait a
May I-
minute, wait a minute.
Mhm.
Just,
Go for
let's
it.
get it right.
Yep, yep.
All right, can you help me out here for just a moment? We have a motion on the floor that the masks optional would be required for, or be allowed for adult visitors in the building. Okay. So has that been seconded?
The amendment has not.
All right, has the main motion been seconded?
Ms. Justice seconded it.
She seconded it, and then she.
In the,
Okay, so you did second it.
I second it, but then I amended.
Okay. So since it has been seconded, we can entertain the amendment. So for clarity, could you restate it with the
Yes.
amendment?
The amendment would be adults are mask optional on the school property effective immediately.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor that the adults would be mask optional on school property effective immediately. Do I have a second for the amendment?
Second.
Second from Mr. Arasi. Do I have any discussion on the amendment?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Arasi?
sporting events, visiting students, would they be required to wear masks at sporting events as they are visiting and not an actual student of the school?
Our interpretation, Mr. Rossi, is that you've already done students, so that's any student, and now you're doing adults, and that would be any adult.
Okay.
So I would think that would be on games or
That's
Correct.
that's
or in the building. Okay, any other discussion?
I would just, I don't know if it's discussion or not, while we are making these changes, and I understand that we're going forward with them, I still would hope that people visiting the schools, just my little point here, people visiting the schools will still be respectful if they are feeling ill, so that we don't come into the school and start a situation. Just throwing that in from my point of view. I'm still concerned, just for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Ligon. I think we can all use that reminder, and maybe you can continue to do that as we go down the road, to be, for us to be mindful of our own health and being respectful of others. Okay, so we have discussion on the amendment. Any other? Okay, if no other.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Arasi?
Just a statement. I've seen cases where a student has cancer and other students have shaved their heads out of an understanding of what's going on. And I would think that Amherst students would be respectful enough that if there was a teacher that maybe if they went to that particular class, they would consider wearing a mask if that's how they personally felt. If the teacher felt uncomfortable and in solidarity for that teacher, the respect for that teacher, that if that happens, then that would be a good thing for Amherst County.
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I just want to echo that. We have asked any of the teachers that are in that situation, because y'all have heard from some of those teachers, to send a message home saying, it's your choice, obviously, but I am in this situation, and if you would mind to wear a mask while you're in my class, Obviously, it's still their choice, but we have given our staff the okay to send those messages home. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you. So we have an amendment, and we've had some discussion. Are you ready for the vote?
On the amendment. Yeah.
On the amendment, yes. So we have that adult masking will be optional. Adult visitors' mask will be optional on school property effective immediately. Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Well, the amendment carries.
Now the
There you
the
go.
whole motion.
Okay, it just feels so natural. Okay, so now, Board, we will vote on the main amendment, the main motion, which is again that adult visitors will be mask optional on school property effective immediately. Do I have any discussion on that main motion? Okay, are you ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. So let's see, we've considered mask wearing for staff, school buses, and visitors.
Madam Chairman, I move to make masks optional on school buses, as school buses are school property, and pursuant to Senate Bill 739, we cannot make students wear the masks on school property. And
Yeah, just maybe condense it to make masks optional on the bus.
masks optional on school buses,
Okay.
Give a time.
effective immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to restate that one more time, just very clearly.
Madam Chairman, I move to make masks optional on school buses, effective immediately.
Okay, I have a motion to make mask optional effective for students on school buses immediately. From Mrs. Justice, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Terry. Okay, Board, do you have any discussion? All right, seeing no, pardon?
I think we're good.
Seeing no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. Okay, the next thing, Mrs. Justice asked to have amended that we consider, and help me if I get this wrong, the VDH guidance regarding contact tracing and quarantining, and you referenced to January 25th, 2022 timeframe. So you may want to share with us a little bit about that before a motion's made, just so that we can have some context.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairman, on January 25th, 2022, the Virginia Department of Health made an announcement saying that they were discontinuing contact tracing except for vulnerable populations, which were nursing homes and correctional facilities. And they explicitly said schools were not considered a vulnerable population. And so I move that we discontinue contact tracing as reflected by the VDH policy, as with the shift in COVID of becoming endemic, it's transmitting even faster and it's milder according to VDH and other sources, that now would be a good time, especially with the relaxing of our restrictions, to continue following that and say, we're done with contact tracing and the quarantining, except for those who are actually symptomatic with COVID and they quarantine at home. So that is what other school districts are doing, and I believe that's what VDH has.
Point of order,
Yes,
point
sir.
of order, though. So you started a motion, and then you started explaining why you wanted the motion. So
I did, I'm so sorry, I
Yeah,
thought it was
so-
discussion.
Would you
Yeah,
like
well,
to
but you
withdraw
did.
the
I'd like to
motion
make a
at this
motion.
time?
I withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was sort of wondering the same, because I was going to see if we could continue some conversation so that we are all on board before the motion's thrown out there, and we've got some, like I said, some context.
Yes.
in understanding it. So, thank you. So, motion's withdrawn.
Thank you.
So, I thank you for that. So, Board, how are you feeling about contact tracing and quarantining? I know that there's things that are happening around us, some keeping them, some are not. I know what the VDH is recommending, but how are you feeling? Thoughts that you may have?
I've got a, Madam Chair.
Mr. Terry?
I've got a question maybe Dr. Wells can answer. Of late, quarantining, what are the numbers? I'm just curious.
So as of 3 p.m. this afternoon, we had 49 students that were quarantined. Of those 49, 18 opted to participate in Test to Stay, so they're able to come to school. Of the 18 people we've had in Test to Stay, we've had one person test positive since we started testing, and that was actually a staff member. So currently we have 49. Now I will say that we'll probably, since we were out for 4 days over the weekend, a lot of people that are coming in positive now have not been in school to need to quarantine other people. So that number will probably go up into the next week or so. But we're getting numbers now of 5 to 7 positives a week, which is a lot better than we had, a month ago. So currently right now we have 49 that are quarantined that are eligible to participate in Test to Stay. Again, 18 are doing Test to Stay.
So 49 are quarantined and 5, you say, were positive to get those 49?
Today we had around 5.
Okay.
We've had, we've been getting 1 to 2, 5, in that range a day to Pat since we came back from the weekend.
Okay.
So our numbers are actually much better than they were.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, so we implemented Test to Stay even though we didn't pass it?
I believe that we need to address that tonight because we had passed the motion, the amendment, but not the motion. So we have it on our list to look at it tonight. Based on council, it was under the purview of our superintendent to be able to accommodate parents if they needed that, since we had already put it out there. It wasn't, I believe, Dr. Arnold, it wasn't a program at this point that you implemented full-blown. We just had some parents that
They chose it.
came to him and asked him. And so based on guidance, felt it was under the purview of the superintendent to at least operate our schools the best he could with our parents. Any other discussion about quarantining and contact tracing and how you're feeling about that, timeframes?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Greiser?
I don't refute the fact that we're obviously having to transition into a period where we're just going to live with the effects of this. I think we keep forgetting that there's two viewpoints to this. It's like I think Ms. Terry has brought up that, we make half people mad with our decisions and half people happy. I think from a consideration standpoint or an ethical standpoint, we notify parents if the kid has head lice in the class. I think, one, as numbers go down, contact tracing should be very minimal at best anyway. But it offers some assurance to staff, to parents that have concerns about some we've heard from with child with cystic fibrosis or whatever, that the school hadn't completely abandoned the desire to try to keep them safe as far as their health. So, I understand, and, there's still a certain obligation under, 1303, I guess, to implement some kind of mitigation. It's kind of like the fire department. If they decided that we're not going to address brush fires anymore until they actually get to a house and they burn the structure. I look at it kind of that perspective. I think from an ethical perspective, we've got to ensure the safety of the kids. And when people gather in a public building, there's a certain expectation that there's policies and things put in place for that safety. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, but I understand why you can't go into the courthouse with a gun. So that when you're in public settings, there's certain expectations that whoever oversees those public settings will provide for the safety and the health of people in those settings. So I think this board has demonstrated through the actions tonight with the masking that we're trying to compromise, but I also think we have to consider that there's other people out there that still have a lot of anxieties about this move, this transition, and that we have a duty to keep every child safe. I understand the parental right to have a child in the classroom, but you got to understand there's usually 16, 17, 18 other kids in that classroom and a teacher that's handling those kids. And I think we have a duty, an ethical duty, to ensure that their safety and health. So that's just my take, and that's why I'm still in favor, in some way, shape, or form, of some kind of contact tracing, tested, stay, quarantine. So.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Arasi?
On the contact tracing, to notify a parent about an issue that their child may or may not have come in contact with someone who tested positive, that I'm in agreement with. However, quarantine I am not. I don't think that we should send the child home as part of our control plan. I think that the parents have an obligation to monitor their child if they come in close contact, but to take the child out of school without symptom, I think is wrong. I think, as if a parent approaches the school and would like to volunteer contact tracing mitigation through test to stay, that's the parent's right, if that's what they choose to do. However, I don't believe we should be quarantining unsick children. They've had enough of that. I think the numbers show that we're quarantining and taking children out of school that are not sick. And you're right, we're not going to please everybody, but we got to transition out of the fear and the anxiety the best we can, and it's always fluid and continuing to move. We're moving away from the pandemic now. I think out of respect for parents that are concerned, that if they get notified that their child has been in contact with somebody, it would be adequate and sufficient. If they choose to have their child mask up for a couple days, that's up to the parent. If they choose to keep their child home, that's up to the parent. I don't think that should be forced upon them any longer. I think that time is expired. And contact tracing can continue out of respect, but as far as quarantining children, I don't think we need to continue with that option right now. I think that needs to go away. So I guess a modified contact trace is something that we should be discussing.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
One moment. Ms. Ligon, did you have anything you want to say? I don't think you've spoken yet.
I'm just listening right now.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Justice.
Maybe redefining what we're thinking of as contact tracing may be a part of the discussion, as in with head lice or strep throat, or can we send like an email home saying your child may have been exposed? We had a student with COVID. That gives the information to the family, and they could choose what to do, depending upon their circumstances. So maybe as far as contact tracing, maybe we're shifting away from what has traditionally been known, COVID contact tracing, to more traditional, just informing. If I've gone to a church function and then there are kids that have had measles, get a call or a letter or an email that says your child may have been exposed to measles. Now, if my kid's vaccinated, that might not be a big deal. If my kid's not, it depends. But that information comes back to me. So maybe that is, maybe that's the direction. Maybe redefining what contact tracing is, to be notify the parents in a general way. Your child may have been exposed to COVID in a class.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I will say this. I think that I think, Mr. Wright, you had mentioned something about VDH was doing contact tracing, something like 3 cases within 14 days or something like that, which I think that gives some alternatives to what we're currently doing, maybe along the lines of what you're saying, Ms. Justice and Mr. Arasi. I have, been struggling with it because, like Mr. Greiser said, there's 2 sides to the coin, We have people with vulnerable populations, and you don't want to come home and give it to someone in your family. You want to know so you can make informed decisions. So it is a hard call. But I think the one thing that we all agree on is that we want our children in school. And that may mean that we have to make some kind of a change, in my opinion. While I struggled with it because, sometimes you don't hear from people, I did try to make as many phone calls as I could this week just to ask people that weren't speaking up and how they felt about it. And, there's still some people that are very scared, like has been mentioned tonight. But I'm also hearing people saying that, yeah, we got to keep our kids in school, and yes, we have to do something. But it ranged from what we should do from one end of the spectrum to the other. So I think I'm hearing you guys say that we may need to redefine contact tracing so that it benefits us and helps us with quarantining. I'm open to that discussion myself. One of the things that I would like to ask the board to consider is tonight was a special meeting, and we did vote unanimously to put these on the agenda, and that's why we're talking about them. But I know our public did not see this on the agenda. And because it is such a difficult decision and there's so many varied opinions on it, I personally would like to take an opportunity between now and our next meeting to put it on the agenda so the public can come speak about it, and maybe get from the superintendent, what some options are that might work so that we can keep our kids in school. We can adjust the quarantine, whether it's, I like the ideas of what you're saying. It's just how do we put it all together and let the public know what we're thinking about and let them give us some input into that. So those are my thoughts, is I feel like people are moving in that direction. I think people are crying out to get our kids in school. I just want to be responsible and make sure our public's aware of it so that they can give us input. So that's my thought on it.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Burke.
I was wondering if our next meeting, perhaps we could talk about, what we want to do with contact tracing. But I would like to make a motion to end quarantine right now.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor from Mrs. Berg that we will end quarantine immediately? Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
correct? Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
And what are we basing that on?
Mrs. Berg,
I mean, are we
can
not
you-
doing contact? Are we doing contact, but you just stop quarantine tonight and do what?
We need to get our kids back in school. We
That
keep
point is
having
well
kids
taken, but
out
what are we-
constantly in
what are we-
quarantine
but
that
what
are
we
not
doing?
sick.
See, what are we gonna do? So tomorrow, everybody comes to school.
If
No
you're
quarantine.
sick, you can stay home. If you
And-
have a temperature, stay home. Same thing
So-
we've always done.
And if we
I
can
know
just.
what we always done. What I'm asking is, you said no quarantine. Is that correct?
Yes,
Somebody
ma'am.
said. And do what?
Educate our kids.
Yeah, Ms. Ligon, if at the moment we can just
I'm done with
stick
that.
to the motion, and the motion, unless Mrs. Berg wants to change the motion, it's just to end quarantine immediately. So I
Madam
think
Chair?
that we have had a second for it. So, Mr. Rossi, you want to continue discussion?
I just wanted to make a statement. What do we do now? We will continue contact tracing and notifying parents that their kids have been exposed. What we won't do is send a child that doesn't have any symptoms home. Now, a parent chooses, hey, my kid has been exposed. If I choose to go through the test to stay program and verify that they're not sick and choose that route for their protection, their own protection, they can do that. So it kind of covers both sides of it by not sending unsick children home. children that are unsure of how things are going can go ahead and do the testing and return to school. But it's notifying all the parents that their child has been exposed. So it's not like we just stopped doing everything. We're still notifying parents. I think with the numbers that we were just told by Dr. Wells, that the numbers are low enough now where we feel pretty confident that notifying parents is going to help our situation, just to make them aware of, look for these symptoms, and they can make that choice.
Okay, I would just want to just double check. I know Mrs. Berg made the motion. Did we get a second on that?
We did.
Just want to make sure. And who was that from?
Mr. Ross.
Mr.
Oh,
Ross.
Rossi. Okay, thank you. I knew we were discussing. I just want to make sure.
Madam Chairman, I move to amend the motion to be quarantining only those who are symptomatic with a fever and test positive for COVID.
Well, then they would just be sick and home.
Effective immediately.
Okay, quarantine only symptomatic students. And did you say students or staff or just students?
Oh. Only symptomatic students with a positive COVID test. The symptoms being a fever and a positive test.
Okay, can you make that again so that it's one
Yes.
statement?
I move to amend Board Member Berg's motion to quarantine those with a fever and a COVID positive test only until the fever is gone.
Madam Chair?
One moment. One moment. Okay, so, Mrs. Justice, your amendment was to quarantine students with a fever and COVID-positive test only until fever is gone. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have an amendment on the floor. Is there a second to that amendment? Okay, there's no second to the amendment, so we are back to the main motion on the floor, which is no quarantining immediately. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we will call for the question. All that are in favor of no quarantining immediately, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Chair votes no. So motion fails. Do we have any other comments on that about how you want to proceed? Would you like to maybe bring it up at our next meeting and have more discussion on it and have some plans brought to us, some options so that we have it in front of us and we know what we're looking at? Any?
I think that'd be more effective than going off the cuff.
Okay. How's the rest of you feeling?
Well, I think we should, one thing we left out, and I would be the first to say, stop the whole, let's go back to normal. But it's not quite that easy. First of all, tonight, we really weren't prepared to do all of this. I wasn't. And we got this, and then we have not even asked the people who have been working themselves into the grind with this, Dr. Wells and his people, of a recommendation that we can meet somewhere in the road. They're the ones that's making these calls. They're the ones that's seeing the sick people. They're the ones that's, dealing with this. So we might want to hear what they have to say to guide us. I didn't say that none of these ideas were bad or good, but it's kind of quick. So parents may not even know some of these things we just said, well, quarantine and don't quarantine if you don't have a fever until your fever's over. I don't know. And sometimes fever is not the indication for COVID. I've seen people sometimes fever is not the main symptom for COVID. It can be spread, a different way. So maybe we just want to look at just one or two things. I think we did discover we're not going to do, what was that we passed?
Well, we passed that the students have optional on the school bus.
All right, so we got, and
Teachers are
visitors.
optional, and I do know that part of that was based on the fact of how regulations are shifting and changing for us, so.
Yeah. What happened? So, I don't know, what were you saying? When we come back?
Well, that would be how I would like to proceed, because I do want to hear from our staff to see what they think that we need to do, that what works for them, how we can keep our students in school. And to also give our parents an opportunity. Like I said, when I made phone calls, people were talking about it and thinking that maybe it's time to shift, but I don't think they quite some people weren't quite wrapping their heads around what it would look like. So I think we need to be clear of what we can do in our schools that support our teachers, our staff, but also keep our kids in school. So I think we can do,
Well, I think there was some good ideas tonight about the contact tracing. Did we pass that?
No.
No, that's what we're talking about.
I know, I knew we didn't, but I'm just saying, we had 3 or 4 things on the table, didn't we?
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I move to remove contact tracing except for by email notifying positive students to parents.
You make a motion to remove contact tracing.
To COVID positive students, notification to parents of exposure.
Contact tracing to COVID positive
Students
students. Okay, go ahead.
for exposure.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to remove contact tracing to COVID positive students for exposure.
No.
Okay.
Is that your motion?
I,
Could we have some clarification on that motion?
yes. So,
I think that may be difficult for staff to interpret.
okay, thank you. So basically, we're only tracing COVID positive students. And just to notify those who've been exposed. So student A is in a classroom, goes home COVID positive, whether it's over the weekend or in school, not in class. There's an email sent out that says your student may have been exposed to COVID. And that's it, just as if it were lice, just as if it were strep throat.
Madam Chair, that is contact tracing. That is what we do. So if a student is positive or is exposed to a positive student, we notify the family of that positive, of the students that were exposed or considered contacts, and that's currently what we do. I think we're confusing contact tracing and quarantining and putting them in the same category. Contact tracing is one thing, which is where we notify the families. Quarantining is when we say a student, you should not be in school for 5 days due to the fact you've been exposed to someone who has tested positive, because you're within that 6-foot bubble, and you may test positive within the next 5 days. So we don't want you around other students because there's a possibility that you could contract COVID-19 and bring it back into the building. So that's the difference between contact tracing and the quarantines. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Okay, I changed my motion. I move to limit quarantining to COVID positive symptomatic students.
Did we just do that? Didn't y'all just vote
I
on
was
that?
thinking we just did that,
Y'all just voted on that.
Yeah.
so we can't bring that back up.
All right.
Okay. So, board, would you like to get a consensus if we want to move this to our next meeting and get some information from the schools about what our options, what they think our options could be? Maybe if you could get them to us, before the board so we can have time to consider them, and maybe even get input from those that are our constituents. So while I can't make a motion, is there is there a consensus for that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
We don't need a motion
You
to
don't.
I
ask them
don't
to
think-
bring
No, it's already on the
information.
agenda.
I don't think we do.
I've already
So,
put it on.
everybody okay
Yeah.
with us working on this at our next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much.
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn?
Nope.
Madam Chair?
Wait a
I-
minute, wait a minute. Y'all okay?
I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
Yes, after speaking with several parents recently, a lot of parents are upset because when you go to the county supervisor meetings, they actually give parents, or not parents, but the community a chance to speak twice during the meeting, once in the beginning and once near the end. And I was wondering if we could perhaps do the same thing for parents. They're frustrated.
Right.
They have to wait, to our next meeting to talk about what happened at the last meeting.
Ms. Berg, I'm happy to put that on our agenda for the March
Okay.
10th meeting. That's something we can't do now, but we certainly can address that on March 10th.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, getting ready to. And the best I can recollect, we have one more topic to talk about, and that was where we had passed, we had a main motion on the floor at our February 10th meeting. Then we moved to amend the Test to Stay program, and I believe the, Mr. Greiser made a motion to implement a Test to Stay program. It was seconded by Mr. Terry. Ms. Justice made a motion to amend to set a time limit for the Test to Stay until April 15th. We held discussion, and then we voted, and it passed unanimously. What we did not do was go back to the main motion. So what we need to do tonight is pick that up. Now, the main motion will be the same as our amended. Now, I'm going to read that to you. So the main motion that we need to consider tonight from our February 10th meeting is to implement a Test to Stay program to end on April 15th, 2022. That's the motion on the floor. I believe we've already had the main motion seconded, so we don't need to do that again unless someone corrects me. So we just go into discussion.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Burke.
I am not in agreement with that. It's going to be causing still too many students to be missing school out on quarantine. And also, if the parents do not agree to test, I believe from what I was reading, you're going to be quarantined. You're not going to be able to come back to school. And you're still forcing students to wear masks under the Test to Stay program.
No.
Okay. Dr. Arnold, can
I-
you explain that to us since
Right,
that's
so-
been brought up so we
Yeah,
have clarity?
we had Ms. Patrone look into the masking part is
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about. So what the VDH had said that once you're quarantined and you come back on days 6 through 10, that they expect you to wear a mask. Since we have the Senate bill that has said that no organization, no government entity, nobody can take that right away from a parent to choose that, then we can't ask the parent, when you come back on days 6 to 10, to mask their child. So it would just be recommended. And we sent that plan to the VDH, and they thought it was a good plan.
All right, it's
Okay.
still too much quarantine. I'm
So,
sorry.
And
Well,
anyone
so,
else?
and also just remember, y'all have already weighed in on quarantining tonight. All this is Test to Stay.
Right. And so quarantining is going to remain in effect until it
Right.
could remain in effect.
Test to Stay
for-
provides
forever,
people an
but
option to actually come to
We
school
will
if they're
address
quarantined.
that in 2 weeks at our next meeting. And at that time, we would address quarantining.
So the Test to Stay would give parents an option, if they so chose, to let their students be tested the 2 to 3 to 4 days, whatever it is, that would be quarantined and still come to school. So it does give the parents an option to have those students in school, as opposed to having to stay home for those 5 days. So it gives parents that option,
Right.
as opposed to just requiring them to be out.
Right. And it could be used by some parents whose students want to play sports or something like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Board, any other comments or discussion tonight about the Test to Stay motion to end on April 15th?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
the,
Mr. Rossi.
after reviewing some of the rules that Test to Stay, I am under the understanding that vaccinated children are exempt and don't need to quarantine. Is that correct? Are we segregating vaccinated from unvaccinated?
So under VDH, if you're vaccinated and you're considered fully vaccinated, which is both doses, for our students to be both those doses of the Pfizer vaccine, you do not have to quarantine. That's through VDH guidance. So that's just what the VDH has put out and CDC has put out, that you're not required to quarantine if you have both doses of the vaccine. Since they are not able to get the booster, they just go both doses of vaccine for teenagers and younger.
So if they're vaccinated, they don't have to participate in the test to stay?
If they're vaccinated and they're exposed, they're not necessarily need to quarantine. Now, if they have symptoms, obviously they have to quarantine. But due to the, again, under VDH language, due to the relatively low numbers of people that are fully vaccinated contracting COVID-19, they have stated that those vaccinated individuals do not need to quarantine.
Dr. Wells, Madam Chairman, may I direct a question to Dr. Wells?
Certainly.
Dr. Wells, are we able to amend our procedure to test those who are vaccinated, who have been exposed?
That'll be a board decision, if y'all so chose.
Let me just weigh in on that. I know that I had that same question. I think I posed to Dr. Arnold like
We would
about a
have to
week
submit
ago
that to the
because of
VDH.
feeling like you
Yeah.
did. But I think you were looking into that to see if it was a possibility for
Right.
grant funds and
Yeah,
things.
the only thing that they told us that we could alter was that masking piece because of the law, how the law had changed. So it wasn't
So
the
the grant-
vaccination piece has always been that if you're vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine, if you're asymptomatic. Yeah.
Now, Madam Chair, I have one more statement to make.
You said one more or no more?
One more statement.
No, I'm just teasing. Go ahead.
So, as I said before, I'm not in support of testing students that are not showing symptoms. I do understand that it's good that parents have options. Before I thought a parent that signs up for the test to stay option would be signing off their parental rights for masks, and apparently that has changed with the board's decisions tonight. However, we still will be testing children that are asymptomatic or not showing any symptoms and are only here for possible exposure. I have recently acquired 4 government-issued COVID tests. And I would invite any board member that thinks that testing well people is the right thing to do, to go ahead, and it's a 15-minute test. You can download the app, and we can go ahead and take that test. And if you think it's all right for unvaccinated or unsick children to submit to this test for 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, what is the number?
Typically, for us, by the time someone is reported positive, like, for example, a student goes home today sick, right? So they go home sick today, they get a positive test, they get results back on Saturday. They've already, so the student they were around was around that student today and tomorrow, so to speak, right? Or yesterday and today. So therefore, if that happened today and they tested positive tomorrow, then we go back to the 2 days prior to when they were sick, which would be 2 days ago. So really, you only may be talking 1 or 2, maybe 3 days max that they would actually have to test, because of the fact that due to the time it takes for someone to be sick, to test positive, to notify the school, us to contact trace that day, you're looking at a 2 to 3 day window that you would have typically of testing.
Okay, now I'm really confused, because if that window to test, would they be quarantined for 2 or 3 days before they could even enter into the program?
No, we have to wait for a positive test before we can quarantine. So if I come in today and I say I have a cold and I don't feel good, right? And
You should stay home.
I stay home, but I don't. But I do take a PCR test at the doctor's office.
Correct.
It takes 2 days for that PCR test to come back.
Correct.
So I don't get my results back until Saturday because I got sick today. So I can't quarantine somebody based off somebody having a cold. We quarantine based off a positive test on that student. So I can't quarantine the other kids in the class until that student gives me a positive test on Saturday. So then I have to go back 2 days prior to when that student was last in school that was having symptoms, 2 days prior to symptoms starting, which takes me back, if it was today, back to Tuesday. So look at all the kids that are around on Tuesday and Wednesday, right, because they're going 2 days prior. And then I count my days. That kid was exposed to that person because you're contagious 2 days prior to symptoms starting. So go 2 days prior to symptoms, takes me to Tuesday. I count my days up, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. By the time it was today, that kid wouldn't even need to take a test because by Monday, their 5 days are over. Does that make, so it depends on when it occurs, when I get the results, and how I know how to count my days back for the 5 days for a test to stay. So it could be 1 day, but because if I get the results back today, then I know, okay, 2 days prior, I go back there, and so I have to do tests tomorrow because the weekend hit, so they don't test over the weekend.
Oh my goodness, how do they get time to teach?
They test at home. So all the testing is at home. That's the issue, just so you understand. That's what I do and my team does every day for every case. So there's a method to it, and I can explain it to you probably more concisely in a different manner, but you can understand we have to look at the day they were symptomatic, go back 2 days prior to symptoms, but I can't do this until they test positive because they could have symptoms, but they could have the cold symptoms or have a sore throat or have a fever and have the stomach bug that's going around, but they wouldn't test positive for COVID. Therefore, I would not quarantine their class because they had a stomach bug.
So would this rapid test qualify as a positive result?
Yes.
Or would they have to go and get a follow-up from a physician?
The CDC and VDA are allowing that to be used as a positive test.
Does the program allow for those who have had COVID to be,
Basically 60 days, if you had COVID, you're considered 60 days after COVID that you don't have to be quarantined.
so with this program, those who have been vaccinated and those who have tested positive for COVID in the last 60 days would be exempted from the quarantine?
Correct. That's what we currently do.
Okay.
We're already doing that. Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? All right, Mr.
call a
No, you go ahead. Oh, did you have a
Madam Chair?
comment to make?
No, I'd like to call the question.
Second.
Okay, I have a call for the question to stop debate, so I have a second to that. All in favor of stopping debate or discussion and moving to the question?
I don't think you have, I think
you have to vote if you're going to limit discussion, correct? Yes.
even on the second, okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will stop debate and we will call for the question. So the main motion on the floor is to implement a test-to-stay program to end on April 15th, 2022. Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Ms. Ligon?
I said aye.
You said aye? Okay. The chair votes aye. So motion carries. I don't believe there's anything else that we have to vote on tonight. Is that correct?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Greiser?
motion to adjourn.
May I ask that we hold off for just one
I'll
moment?
withdraw the motion.
Just so that we have a minute, we have, I know there's one thing I want to do before we leave tonight. I promised Mr. Rossi I would not start at his end. So I'm going to start here. Mr. Terry, would you have anything you want to say tonight before we dismiss or?
I didn't see that on the agenda.
Well, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Should I not be doing that? Can I just do my
I
thing?
want you to do what you needed to do.
I do want to do that,
Do
but
it.
am I not supposed
Do
to
it.
ask for them?
No, you don't need to.
Okay, it's not on
Just
our
do what you
agenda,
do.
so I'm going to follow that and not ask you for comments. But I would like grace for me to do one thing before we leave tonight. I would like to ask Mrs. Cecil if she would come up. We decided to do it at the end, so it wouldn't be so formal for you. But Mrs. Cecil, I know that Dr. Arnold has recognized you. It was Board Clerk Week last week, and we just wanted to say how appreciative we are for everything you're doing, everything you have been doing but with us going through the superintendent search, I know I've come up here and you are running. You have to wear your running shoes. So just thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cecil. And thank you, Board. Okay, now Mr. Grice.
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mrs. Justice. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are adjourned.